Excellent, thank you. We've had a very rich collection of initial remarks here from the panelists, and we have about 5 minutes or so before we open it up to Q&A. So I want to give the panelists a chance to maybe ask some questions of each other. Matthew, would you like to lead off there?
Yeah, I'd really like to ask my two colleagues who have the political perspective, what is it that you believe can be achieved over the next couple of years in terms of sort of the global governance question, whether can we get Doha back on track? Can we actually get the IMF to be the lender of last resort for the global system that it needs to be?
Well, first of all, let me say that I am disagreeing with all these ideas that present this crisis that's an opportunity to refound it, to recreate capitalism or free economy. I don't know. I don't believe in this idea. I believe in the idea that improve things, improve situation. Second, I don't believe that it's necessary to take decisions to reinforce controls, to establish more interventionism in the markets, in the companies. This one thing is more intervention, another thing is better control. And the world don't need more intervention, need, in my view, better controls, better supervisions. But the great failure of this crisis is the failure of the institutions that have the responsibility of supervision. Supervisor is the great failure of this. It is the best supervision, but no more supervision. Best control, but no more control. This is a very important question. Third, I consider that the response of the crisis is not through huge programs, enormous programs with more deficit, more debts, and more difficulties to lift crisis for the countries. I consider that this decision is the one thing is to establish some stimulus package to recover the capacity of the economy, especially to recover the trust and the confidence in the financial system, because without confidence and trust in financial systems, it's impossible to recover the economy. And another thing is to full budgets in a lot of countries of the world with enormous deficit of debt. This is a policy, in my view, dangerous to leave the crisis, and dangerous for the future. Another thing is helping to the people that need it in this moment, be helped to be jobless and so on. And then finally, I consider that the responsibility of the International Monetary Fund and other institutions is to maintain, to control the damage in the, as you write very well in your book, the second world, and the second countries, in countries, emerging countries that not suffer more damage in these circumstances. No? But to express a very, very strong leadership and right directions of the economic decisions with the stability, with more freedom, with free markets, with more liberalization, with more free trade for the world is a good way, the good answer for living this crisis.
Congressman Crowley, yeah.
Yeah, if I just comment just on that. I think, not without regard to the rest of the world, I think as we look at regulation here in the United States, what we've been hearing a clamoring from banking institutions for some time now is that there's been an unlevel playing field. That you've had the regular banking, regular banks have been regulated in such a way to their disadvantage to the shadow banks that haven't had that same type of regulation. The cowboy effect happened because of the diminution of Glass-Steagall, and Graham Leach-Bliley in its introduction. So I think not necessarily in terms of, and I know there is an impact on the world, but we're looking at the domestically as well in terms of some of the inequities that may have existed within the industries here. So I just, my sense they will have an impact on the rest of the world as well. But in terms of more direct to the question you had in terms of trade, you mentioned Doha. We have 3 bilateral trade agreements before the Congress at this moment. At a meeting at the White House that the new Democratic Coalition, which I'm a chair of, we had with the President, he stated at that meeting to us, the 68 members of the House, Democratic Caucus, centrist moderates on fiscal matters, that he's not an isolationist, meaning the President, that he believes in fair and free and fair trade, that the paradigm maybe on the bilateral agreements needs to be re-examined, but also the benefits to the United States as it pertains to free trade agreements in multilateral as well as bilateral agreements has to be first and foremost. What benefits to derive? Now, I also have concern in terms of Doha for the LDCs, the least developed countries in the world, like Bangladesh, like Cambodia, like others, that I think is a vehicle by which we can help them develop as well by access. Stuck on, right now at the moment, the service industries and how that gets reconciled, but even maybe more of a stumbling block has been the issue of agriculture and of government subsidies in agriculture, both here in the United States and in Europe. Whether or not that can get broken through or not in Europe, and certainly here in terms of the difficulties we've had in our own Congress in terms of those subsidies, it remains to be seen. But and I just say I think that at some point we will do the Panamanian Free Trade Agreement. I think that I don't think that Colombia is completely dead. I think that Korea may be more on life support at this point in time, but especially as it relates to the issue of beef and to autos. And I point out that face saving is a very important aspect of this, of free trade and fair trade. Senator Baucus from Montana represents one of the largest producers of beef in the United States. And Sandy Levin, the chair of the Trade Committee on the House Ways and Means Committee, which I sit on, is from Detroit, Michigan. Both autos and beef need to be addressed in that particular case, I think, to make it a reality. But I think the president wants to have a free trade agreement. I think he's going to want to have the soft power of trade. And I think he's going to want to have a trade promotion authority at some point as well.
Mm-hmm. President Aznar, did you want to make a quick response?
Mm-hmm. I only said one thing, if it's possible, about the relation with Latin America, especially with Colombia. Mm-hmm. Because I know the difficulties. But I can say Colombia is the most important ally for the United States in South America. And reject the free trade agreement with Colombia is not only a serious problem for Colombia, it's a serious problem for the foreign policy of the United States in Latin America.
Registered.
Because, well,
I mean, it doesn't.
You are in the House of the Representatives, no? But this is the idea. But the alternative is very complicated. I defend the idea, and I accept the European responsibility in the failure of the Doha round. No? But in 2007, Europeans and Americans both decided that the Doha round was a failure. This is a mistake because some people, the pressure of some people. But now the responsibility is more divided in India, in China, and in Brazil, and in other countries. No? But I think one of the tasks of the new leadership is to promote this, because especially for developing countries, to have a good multilateral agreement in terms of free trade is extremely interesting, extremely important, and for us, developed countries as well. And try to combine this economic interest with the strategical, political vision of the things. I think, I believe this is convenient and suitable.